Hello, listeners. This is Adrienne, and I'm just gonna tell you about what you're about to hear, which is an episode of the podcast, How to Survive the End of the World, that we recorded with the University of Minnesota. Basically, it was a live show that we did in March of this year. And it was hosted by the Women's Center in the Office for Equity and Diversity. And I'm going to read off all the co-sponsors because like mad people actually made this happen. And we want to thank them. So thank you to Campus Climate University of Minnesota, the Center for Community Engaged Learning, the University of Minnesota, Center for Leadership in Maternal and Child Health, CFAMS, Office for Diversity and Inclusion, Communication Studies, English, Gender and Sexuality Center for Queer and Trans Life, the Department of Gender, Women, and Sexuality Studies, the Hubbard School of Journalism and Mass Communication, the Multicultural Center for Academic Excellence, the Multicultural Student Engagement, Martin Luther King Jr. Program, Race and Indigeneity, Gender and Sexuality Studies Initiative, aka RIGS. Okay, that's a good RIGS. All right. TCF Bank and the Urban Research and Outreach Engagement Center. And the Kaufman Theater for hosting us. And we really were so well hosted, so well cared for. So we really just want to shout out the team that held us down on site. And so you're going to listen to the whole thing. We have a special guest who joins us. And there's big news that gets dropped during this that will seem like late to you because now it already happened. But at the time, it was very, very, very brand new. So much love to y'all. Enjoy.
Hi. Hello there.
Hello there.
It's nice to see you. Fine people. How you doing, girl?
I am like right here.
Right here, right now.
I am right here, right
We're
now.
present.
Yeah. What is this chair doing here?
I don't know.
I'm gonna move that. No, it's
just,
good. Yeah.
Just throw it at
I'm
me.
just gonna throw it. I just wanted balance, you know?
All right. I think
Should we start
before we
with
get started,
our-
we should do the tarot
yeah.
read.
Okay.
Okay. All right. I just got a new deck from my friend Adaku Uta.
We love Adaku.
Nigeria represent. Okay. And this deck is called the Slutist Tarot. That's the universal sign for slutist. Remember, my children are here.
My children are here.
We're so excited you're here. It's going to not change anything. All right. A card jumped out. I think that's our card.
I think that's our card. Temperance.
Temperance.
Ooh.
This is a good card. This card, y'all know what temperance is? Some of you know? This card is all about balance, right? It's finding the balance. We were just talking about this. It's really, so one of the things we're going to be striking tonight is like a balance. There's stuff we want to talk about. There's stuff y'all want to hear about. There might be stuff you want to talk about. There's stuff we want to hear about. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of really up energy. And also there's content we want to talk about tonight that's actually really heavy and hard to hold. So temperance. It's also about really like the moderation that's nourishing, not the kind that's rigid.
Yes.
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 Anything else to add about temperance?
This is a card that I've been pulling since the solar eclipse in 2017.
Okay, polka dots. That's
So
great. I'm going to show you. Okay, so Autumn hasn't seen the special yet. So that is a reference to something that you all need to watch that is Amanda Seales' comedy special.
Okay.
Are we promising? Are we going to follow?
I keep
HBO?
being read about the fact that I haven't seen this
Did I
comedy
read
special
you?
yet.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Well, you should watch it.
Okay.
right.
I do feel, though, that this is a lesson that the universe is continuing to invite me to learn right
Yes.
now. So I'm just taking notes.
You're taking notes.
Should we begin with our official intro
Oh, yeah.
for the sake of the
Because
recording?
it's a podcast.
Yeah, we're
Okay.
recording.
Yeah. Zach, hi. In the future.
No, you know.
All right, so we're recording this as a live podcast. This is only our second time ever doing this, where we have an audience here. It's exciting.
Yes, you're so good at that.
I know, y'all are like really good
It's
screamers.
pleasurable. I love you.
I think you started, right? Mm-hmm. Okay.
I'm Autumn Brown,
Like, I never remember.
a queer science fiction writer, a theologian, a mother of dragons, and a healing justice facilitator for social movements living in rural Minnesota.
And I'm Adrienne Marie Brown, author of Emergent Strategy and Pleasure Activism, co-editor of Octavia's Brood, and a social justice facilitator for Black liberation movements living in Detroit. And I'm an auntie extraordinaire.
That's right. You're all those things.
And a doula, but mostly an auntie extraordinaire.
And this is How to Survive the End of the World.
Our podcast on surviving apocalypse with grace, rigor, and curiosity.
You got it! Good job.
It only took a year and a half. All right.
Yes.
So this podcast is, we're still really shocked and amazed that this is going well. It's like, wow, we really enjoy doing this, and we're really excited to get to do this with y'all tonight. So, yeah, I think we should start with checking in, how we're doing, and then we'll talk.
Yeah, and I feel like I want to ask you to share with the audience some really big fucking news.
Oh my
That just happened. Okay, so last night something happened.
Oh, yeah, I had to tell you. Wait, can I tell them the Mercury retrograde part first?
Okay, yes. Tell us the journey that led to the news.
Let me tell y'all this story. So yesterday, I had to fly here, right? I wasn't here. I was in Detroit. And I went, I'm about to be on the road for a month. So I went in, I got these steroid shots in my knees for the first time ever. Has anyone ever had that? No. It feels like...
Big needles.
It feels like, it's like the worst thing ever. It's like, it feels like a funny bone thing, but it's happening on purpose. Like the whole time you're like, that's going to be like a bad funny bone thing. That's going to be like a bad funny bone thing. That's a bad funny bone thing happening right now. So, and then you just have to sit there and they're like, relax. I'm like, no. That's not what's going to happen. But anyway, so I had that experience, and then I drive home and I'm like, okay, I've got 20 minutes to go in the house and pack, and then come back out. It was just a weird week, you know?
That's like the one way that you're not a Virgo.
I know. I failed at Virgo-ness in that particular... Well, I always keep the bag mostly packed, so it's like I just have to throw a couple outfits in.
Finn is slow clapping at you.
And also I keep a box of clothes that you guys at your house, right? So anyway, so I was like 20 minutes to pack, and I think I'm being really cute. I'm like listening to music. I make like a little video of myself listening to music. I'm like, I'm feeling myself. I got 20 minutes. I'm gonna go outside. I lock the car keys in the running car. Okay, so I'm like, oh, all right, well, just stay calm. Like, don't take it personally. The universe is not like, hating on you or anything. Luckily, one of my neighbors was home. I was able to find the spare key to the car that I was just praying existed, got it in, got the bag packed, get on a call with a funder that I'd kind of forgotten. I was like, oh, yeah, I said I could do this on the way to the airport. So I get on the call, go to the airport, get to the airport. Every single place where you can park on the airport is full. And they're all like, we're so sorry for the inconvenience. I'm like, it's not an inconvenience if you're making me miss my flight. I think I should legally be able to sue your entire existence. But it's just for using the word wrong.
I mean,
like,
if you were a litigious person, which you're
I'm not, because it takes time, but that's not what I want to put my attention on. But I was feeling salty. I was feeling like really salty. So much so that the person I was talking to was like, should we let you go? I was like, no, it's fine. Yes, okay. So then go find a place to park the car far, far away. I've got a half an hour now to make this flight. And somehow the shuttle driver, I'm able to motivate him with my concerns, and he gets us there on time because he was moving slow, but I was like, this is not a slow moment. So then I get to the airport and the air train is broken. And something I told Autumn was when I was getting the steroid shots, and I was like, I gotta go to the airport today. They're like, well, these steroid shots, whatever you do, let's just hope it's not like gate A75 because you shouldn't be running through the airport or anything, right? So whatever we do, just don't run through the airport. So I'm going through security, and I look down, I'm like, okay, I got it. It's A75. Okay, what the, you know? I was like, this is really happening right now. You know, and I was like, you know that feeling where you're just like, ah! Like, and then you're like, that's not gonna help. I've got to calm down. Autumn's waiting. Autumn, you'll hold the plane for me. And I
Right,
told
and
her,
I did say I would hold the plane for you.
Yes, but I want to say that I had promised you I was going to get you lunch. I was like, I'm going to get there in so much time. I'll get you a sandwich.
Yeah,
It's
you
like,
were
no
going to
big
bring
deal.
me food.
I know.
You didn't bring me food.
But you see what I was up against,
Yes,
right? It was like I was
see it
trying
now.
so hard.
I see it now.
Anyway, so all this happens. And I'm like, walk slowly as fast as you can. Like, right? And it's really hard to walk fast slowly. So, and Autumn is still trying to help me understand time the whole time too. I was like, can I get a sandwich? Oh, and I hadn't eaten because I've been intermittent fasting. So I hadn't eaten. So I was like shaking
no,
with
bitch,
hunger.
you can't stop.
And I was like, but I'm not gonna make it. You know, like I really was like a portrait of, I really felt like it was a near-death experience. And I know it wasn't. But it's just like dramatic Mercury retrograde behaviors. Okay, so I get to the plane, but then Autumn's there because she was on her layover on her way back from her writing retreat.
That's right.
And so I was like, hey, girl. So we moved around the whole plane because we were like, we got to sit together.
Yeah, we made the guy sitting next to me get up 3 times.
He felt feelings.
And he was, by the 3rd time, he was like,
I was like, don't do that passive-aggressive smile. We are sisters, and we
Yeah.
just have to be by each other.
Yeah.
So then, of course, we talked. So normally, we do look alike, right? Do you think so? I think y'all look like us, too. Okay. So we have special audience members who are going to be part of the entire show. I just hope you know that.
yeah.
So we get on the plane, and normally I get on Wi-Fi when I'm on the plane. Often I'll get on and do a little work, but because Autumn was there, I didn't check my Wi-Fi, I didn't check my email, didn't look at anything. We fly. We talk. We get off the plane, we rent the car, we talk the whole way. 6 hours of talking nonstop.
Yeah, we're just talking.
Amazing.
We get the kids.
It
We're
was
still
amazing.
talking.
We're still talking, nonstop, okay?
Yeah.
Get to the house. Finally, I look at my phone and I see that I've like missed some calls and there's an email there. And I was like, what's this, you know? Why people try to reach me? I still can't even really deal with it. So then I open this email and it's from my publisher, Charles, at AK Press. Now, AK Press is my press. These are my folks, okay? They are scrappy movement press.
Anarchist press.
I've done everything with them. They're like anarchists. They're like my white bros. You know, they're just like, we are radical. We are here for you, okay? I love these. I love them, okay? These are my folks.
They know better than to have dreads.
But we are like...
Does it have what? They know better than to have dreads.
They know better, right? They know better. I would never even wonder about that, right?
Yeah.
And more importantly, I'm like, they love me, and so we have an agreement, right? When we first brought Octavia's Brew to them, they were like, we sell small. You know, we're a small thing. It's like, if we sell 500 copies, it's going to be cool. And I'm like, that's great. You know, we're like, Walid and I are movement people, and then when I did Emergent Strategy, I was like, this is a weird book about ants. Like, it's all good. Let's just, like, do this these weird small projects that are just, like, relevant for movement people. It's great. So they've never done anything like what I'm about to tell you. So Charles it says this email, and I don't believe the email, so I have to call him. But the email says, I kind of wanted to tell you this by phone, so I've been trying to call you, but I couldn't reach you. But pleasure activism is number 6, debuting at number 6 on the New York Times bestseller list. That was my actual reaction. That's still my actual reaction because, no. Are you kidding me?
Like,
so then,
what?
I called Charles and I was like, Charles, I think you sent me a wrong email. Like, I was really just like, something's wrong. I just finished watching the OA, so I was also like, I flipped universes. I'm in a different universe.
Right.
What universe is this? You know, like, it was really on point. But then Autumn was still here. It was still the same universe. So I was like, okay.
Yeah.
This might be true.
Confirming reality since 1983.
That's the tagline. Can you make a t-shirt?
Yes.
T-shirt.
Someone in here could make that t-shirt.
Is it you?
The confirming reality since 1983 t-shirt.
That's when she was born.
Yeah.
Okay. So, anyway, so this is my good news. And I've basically been giggling and shaking and kind of laughing since then. It feels like a full life orgasm. Like, I'm just like, okay, this is what it's like when you, like, focus on what you're supposed to be doing and let something come through that you're supposed to be doing. And I will say this, I've been a writer my whole life, and I always was like, I'm going to be in the New York Times someday. But I thought it was going to be like on a journalism tip. And so I just gave it up when I was like, I'm not a journalist. I don't like asking other people questions about stuff. I don't know. I'm like, that's not my bag. That's
not true.
I do, but not like in a reporter way. I'm like, are you telling the truth? I don't really care. Like, if you imagined it, that's also interesting. Like, is it interesting? Like, that's what I care about, right? So the idea of reporting was like, so I was just like, I'm never going to be in that particular one. I'm going to do this like scrappy, dope work, and I love it. But it feels really good.
Well, Anne, I just have to say, I'm so proud of you. And I'm so proud of you. And like, I really feel, and I think a lot of us, there are folks in this room who also have pieces included in pleasure activism.
Raise your hand if you have a piece in pleasure activism.
Right
here.
We got some people in the room.
Here. And it really is the most collective thing, yo.
And like, there's something so beautiful about there's a friction to this moment in time.
A pleasurable friction.
A pleasurable friction. But the fact that this collection, that these voices are being received in that way is such a gift to the world. Yeah. And you birthed that.
Yeah. It's really exciting. Like, I will say, I don't know how I would handle it if it was like, I wrote this book by myself with no other people in it. I don't know if it would make sense. It felt so good to be like, that means all these people are going to read Kara Page and Alexis Pauline Gumbs and you and Janine and Jody and Danny and Amita Swadden and
Alana.
Like all these people that I'm like, my friend Alana, right, who passed away last October and taught us about living with pleasure with cancer. I'm like, bye, y'all. I love you. They told me they had to go. Don't any of y'all try that shit. All right. I love y'all.
You're stuck here.
They're literally going to the airport.
Yeah.
Anyway, so it felt like that. It felt like, trying to be like, y'all need to pay attention. These folks have something to teach us about how to be alive right now and how to survive this end of the world. And it just feels really good. So thank you for giving me a moment, because I was like, I had to tell somebody that this was my day. Like, also, because I'm like, thank God for somatics, because you have to have some, you have to like work up the capacity to move from that to that and like be like, I survived. I survived moving from a really crappy day to a really deep day to a really like best day ever.
Yeah, I mean, you've like put in so much healing work over the years to develop that range, range to hold both like physical suffering and like psychic suffering and confusion and like elation.
And I'll say I've been feeling really happy. Like anyone who's asked me how I'm doing for about the last like 3 months or so, I've been like, I'm happy. Like I feel really happy and satisfied and good. Like in a way that I've never felt in my adult life. Like it almost makes me want to cry, because I'm like, I always thought I was going to get this because of someone else. Like that I was going to like, if I fall in love or if I get a certain accolade or if I do something. And instead it's just been like, oh, if I just like love myself every day, eventually I'm going to love myself every day and I'll be loved every day. And then I'll tune into the love around me every day. I want to testify. Like, I really want to testify. Like, it's not, no one can give it to you, but you cannot avoid it. Like, if you focus on it, it's miraculous. It's miraculous. So, okay, but I also want to talk about your ass right now, because there's a major creative achievement that you have hit in this past 3 months of your sabbatical that I want everyone to know about. And I say it as a fangirl. Can you tell people a little bit about what you've been up to?
Well, so as many of you know, if you're listeners to the podcast,
Are there any listeners to the podcast?
Are any of you listeners?
OMG. They know who you are.
I
did
did.
Listen to it? Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
So y'all know, if you listen to the podcast, that I like to listen to my own voice. So Siobhan has heard me like reviewing episodes. It's true. I have to review the episodes as a part of the editing process.
Yeah, we have to.
Anyway, so I went on sabbatical at the beginning of January. I'm nearing the end. It's been not what I thought it was going to be.
Sabbaticals rarely are.
And so I'm not ready to talk about that yet.
Well, I think you should wait till it's done, because it's not done yet.
It's not
She's
quite
still
done
on
yet,
the sabbatical. This is like a
technically.
special moment.
But I did set out, the only creative goal I set out for myself was to finish writing my novel, and I did. I did. And there's always...
You finished part 1.
Well, okay. So I made it as far in the process as sending my novel to readers people who I love and trust deeply, who have deep familiarity with my body of work. And some of the overwhelming feedback in the process is this should be book 1 of a trilogy. And so now I have some more work set out for me.
Exactly. It's so good.
But I do feel like, especially inside of some of what actually has happened in my life over the last 3 months and the last couple of years, I feel like I feel profoundly accomplished that I finished this book. And it feels Alexis Pauline Gums, who's in the house, was one of my readers and gave me the feedback that in reading the book, she felt how deeply it was connected to my life's purpose. And so knowing that I was able to create in that way inside of a period of my life that has been filled with like a lot of suffering has been really beautiful, you know?
Well, and it's not disconnected. It feels like very not disconnected. And I think that a lot, that I'm like, to me, the best creative work is rooted in real soil, right? Real compost, real fertilizer, real shit. Mm-hmm. And we actually just interviewed, and it's going to be coming. It hasn't come out. No, it's going to be coming out. We interviewed N.K. I was like, what's out there? We interviewed the writer N.K. Jemisin. She wrote
author of the Broken Earth trilogy and the Inheritance trilogy.
And it's a trilogy of sci-fi books that you're going to read someday, and you're going to love them. But one of the things we'll talk about when we interviewed her, but one thing she talks about is she lost one of her parents in the process of that trilogy, and how that it was just like, of course, that comes in. You know, grief is such a real thing, and it comes into the work. And so much of what we are talking about with this podcast is really about that. Like, how do we take all the suffering and all the real pain and all the reality of life, right? And how do we say we can turn this, we can harness this energy and turn it into something that can nourish so many people. And as one of the people who got to read it, I was just like, I just kept being like, you know, gasping at like what you had turned that shit into. And I was like, yes, bitch, you're so brilliant. So anyway, I'm really excited that you're at where you are with it now.
Thank you.
And I'm really excited for it to get out further into the world.
Yeah. Thank you.
So we have a big piece of content we want to talk about tonight. And we felt like we couldn't do it alone. And that's why there's a chair here that you may have noticed. Did you notice that?
Did you notice that there's a chair?
Did you see the chair over there? All right. So I thought we were going to sing. Anyway.
Yeah. No, I mean, we did. We both did. It happened. Stop it.
Okay.
Stop.
I'm going to stop. So we're going to bring up this very special guest who we love, who you love, who everybody loves, to talk about prison abolition and transformative justice. And it's Alexis
Pauline Gums.
Yes. All right, so she's the sister, the doctor, the professor, the writer, the author, the novelist. Okay, Archive is the main thing that we're going to be asking her to talk about up here. We have a microphone for you. Do you want to be in the middle? Where do you want to go? Just in the middle. You're our middle guest.
I think it's fine.
Okay, you're our middle guest.
I just feel like I won The Price is Right. I'm like,
You basically, you were the price is right. For you, the price is absolutely right. So what we wanted to talk about, it's like we've had a couple of shows about transformative justice and trying to really understand how do we, inside this punitive system, inside of this the system where prison is one of the many ways that we are constantly punishing each other, right? Everything in our society is structured on constantly punishing each other. And so we're trying to figure out, like, how do we switch that? What does transformative justice actually mean? And for us, it's really how do we go to the root system of what is actually causing us to harm each other in the first place, and how do we start to eradicate the impetus that causes harm? And so we thought it would be really interesting to talk about this as fiction writers first, right? Because all of us are fiction writers who also are mediators and facilitators and doing the work in this plane of real world. So we thought first we would want to ask, what are some of the ways in your fiction writing that you are practicing and playing with transformative justice models, playing with moving beyond prisons as a way of meting out justice? Yeah. Tell us about it.
Oh my goodness. So I just feel a lot of gratitude actually to you and to Walida for being like, you're a science fiction writer.
By the way, Alexis, you're a science fiction writer.
So contribute something to this anthology. I was like, I am?
Yes.
So it changed everything, because I feel like you were just saying, when we're facilitating, it's like, how do we get from this moment that we're in right now to the best possible dream we can imagine? Yes. Right? And what I felt like I got permission to do when you were like, you write science fiction, send us something by this day. I was like, okay. But what it gave me permission to do was to go all the way to the best dream I could imagine, and then still see the contradictions that were still there.
That's right. That's totally it.
Which to me is that reach that we have to take in order to have transformative justice happen, right? It's like, oh, I thought that I could envision a perfect world, and I see that there's actually contradictions within me, that if I don't work through it in this fiction writing, I'm just going to carry them with me into the future.
That's right.
Even when we get to the best place that I imagine.
Because it's in each of us.
Exactly.
That's right.
Exactly. So it's given me the depth to do that inner work in a visionary way that I think is necessary, because it's thinking that I have it figured out is one of the major obstacles to having any kind of compassion for somebody else who's done some harm.
Okay, continue. Well, I was going to say, you continue, but I also want to continue. Okay.
Continue. Hold on.
Oh, yay. Okay, so continue, but stop. Well, I wanted to ask you really to speak a little bit about an M-Archive, which is the prophetic text of our times that Alexis happened to write, but it's really an important novel / extended poem / literally a prophetic, like it feels like you channeled so much in that. There's so many pieces, like there's a piece in there that's about the love of a fat black woman that I'm like personally a little bit like,
it's like
I don't know why
the
it's
centerpiece
so good
of
to me.
the story.
It is, right? But there's so many pieces in there that I feel like are your way of saying, and this is what they learned about justice. And I wonder if there's any of that you're like how did you get to that, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I think that process was like a trip. Yes. It was a listening process. It was a get up every morning and be available and get out of my own way type of process.
It's called the Lucille Clifton strategy.
Yes, very much the Lucille Clifton strategy. It means that you just open yourself up and listen. So Lucille Clifton, I'm so glad you asked that.
I know.
Because
I'm really
anytime
glad.
to teach people about Lucille Clifton,
it's
I'm like,
it's a good day.
Yes,
Let's talk about it, Finn.
So Lucille Clifton, one of the greatest poets to ever live, has this series called Messages from the Ones. And so she had this, yes, Katie? She had this experience where she woke up every morning and just listened. And she got these messages, which you can read in her last book, where they're just telling her, like, the world's about to end. Here's what we think we should do. Here's who we are. Here's who we are not. Here's what you need to know. And one of my favorite things that she wrote in that process was, I am not my sister's keeper. I am my sister. And I was just like, that's the transformative justice.
That's it right there.
Yes.
Like, that's it. That's
That's the whole thing.
That's right.
So I am not Lucille Clifton. I love Lucille Clifton. And yet, very influenced by her work, and had this experience of sitting and listening and wanting to sit and listen and be with some of my favorite scholars. So listening to and working from the work of M. Jackie Alexander, who you all should read her book, Pedagogies of Crossing. Oh, I love Jackie so much. Thank you, Jackie. And as I sat there and listened, it's just these scenes came through. And I was like, are these in the far future? Are these in the near future? What is going on? But I know what happened is every day, sometime during that day, I would see something from that scene in my day and try not to freak out in front of the people who I was with when that happened. So that was how I knew that it was something that was not about me telling people
You
what
were seen
I knew.
as in encountering in the physical.
Yes. As in, like, there's a scene where somebody it's around her beautiful blackening heart, and this person, they're on the planet of sulfur, and their heart is turning to coal to turn into a diamond. And literally that day, I walked into an art gallery to do like a fundraiser for the art gallery itself, and there was hanging from the ceiling all of these plaster hearts and one black one just right in the middle. And I was like,
Well,
okay.
All right.
So that's how I knew it's something collective, right?
It's something big.
I was like, they're just like, she's up listening, so we just gonna tell her, but this really is for
That's right. That's right.
She just wakes up really early, so we're gonna,
That's beautiful.
go ahead and put that there. So about the transformative justice,
Yeah.
I mean, I think that I had to let go of how do I imagine it, right? And so that means I had to let go of being like correcting all the stuff that I wish didn't exist, revenge for all the stuff that I've had to experience as a survivor,
Preach.
and say like, how would people figure it out? Like, how would people open themselves up to a widely different context? What if there was no manifesto? What if there were no words for it? What would they do then? What would it mean to understand that loving fat black women was actually the key the entire time? And until that happened, our relationship with the planet would never be generative.
what
So-
if?
What?
Yes.
I mean, that's the truth.
Yes.
And so it gave me the opportunity to
It sure is.
to be an extremist about what I'm an extremist about. That's a core held
right.
belief that I have. But also to step away from everything that I thought I believed
That's
and look at
great.
it newly. So
I love
thank you
that.
for that.
That's exciting. Autumn, what about in your work? Like, I want
Well-
to tell people just really quickly, because now this is becoming a trend that I like to. You want to talk? I'm going to talk instead. It's trending on my heart. So, well, I'm just going to say that people don't know that for those who read Octavia's Brood, the short story that Autumn has in that book is really a powerful story about justice, and the novel is like going in through that door in some ways, and then into the whole world of that story setting. So I would love to hear. I know we're both over here like testify, but can you tell
Stop
a little
it.
bit about? No, don't stop.
No, but I mean, keep doing
Don't
it.
really. Yeah, tell us a little bit about for you.
I think first I want to just say a little something about one of the constructs that I work with a lot in the novel is, I'm working with ideology and how ideology informs how the communities that we encounter in the novel understand their origin stories, like where they come from, what their practices are. But then there's also it's like an ideology becomes something that's very active. It's like it almost becomes like a verb in the story. And in the novel, there's multiple communities that we encounter that in various ways think that they have moved beyond the ideologies that informed the past. And one community particularly believes itself to be like outside of ideology. And so this character, Orion, that we are journeying with, she is really having to like rewrite her as she is alone and more alone. She's having to rewrite her understanding of like, is it even possible to be outside of and beyond ideology? And if it's not, what is the ideology of her community if it's not true that they're beyond it? And as she journeys further, she realizes that it's not even possible, right? And I think about this because I just had a conversation last week about prison abolition. because of the fact that we were doing this show, when I was at this writing residency in Vermont, and one of the other artists who was there was asking me, oh, what are you guys going to be talking about during your live show? And I said, oh, prison abolition. And he immediately was just like, oh, well. I mean, I shouldn't even like give too much away about this, but you can imagine, it's a man, so you can imagine.
So right there, you can imagine.
Right there, you can imagine some of the things that ensued in terms of how he started talking to me and encountering my my adorable thoughts.
They're so cute.
And you know, but he, I love that too. I love it when people do that to me, and I'm like, oh. You don't know that you're talking to a scholar.
Do not underestimate Autumn.
Like, you don't
but I mean, you know,
Well, I think it's also, there is something really powerful. I think about this a lot where I'm like, oh, you think you're supreme. And so I'm just going to enjoy this.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like, I used to be like, oh, I have to, and I was like,
yeah.
I literally can't possibly help you
it
see
is
this.
beautiful to reach a point in your life where you can be like, oh, I can be in this experience and be totally undefended.
Yes.
Because I know what's happening.
Yes.
I know what's happening with you.
Yes.
Because this is the work I do.
Yes.
And I know what I'm about to do. Because this is the work I do. I was actually very kind, but...
That's because that's the work you do. It's not like that's how you do it.
But one of the
Kindness
things
eases change.
One of the things that happened in the conversation is that he did the sort of normal like gut response that people have to the idea of prison abolition, which is, well, I mean, you know, don't we need to have prisons? Don't we have to have prisons because there are bad people in the world and those bad people have to be locked up? I mean, what about pedophiles? Don't pedophiles need to be locked up? And I just turned to him and I said, you know, if that's what prisons existed to do, this would be a really different conversation. Right?
You better talk about
And historically, legally, institutionally, what prisons exist to do is not to protect anyone,
right?
Right? That's not what they exist to do.
Right.
But it's so interesting to see, you know, and of course we know, I mean, many of us know that prisons exist to create a permanent underclass in society, that they exist to extend the reach of enslavement and genocide. They're used to torture people, thank you, Finn, and to create more conditions of harm and violence, right? So, but it's so interesting for me to witness the function of ideology in that moment, you know, that moment in him that like, you know, and not even questioning as he's speaking, well, don't bad people need to be locked up? Well, why? Well, what's bad? What do you mean by that? What did that person do? What healing did they have access to? What rehabilitation have they had access to? What would justice actually mean for anyone? You know what I mean? Like, we don't slow down to ask ourselves those questions of like, what are the actual conditions of justice? What are the actual conditions of healing? What are the conditions of repair? And this is one of the things that Adrian and I went to Ireland in February, and we led a series of visionary fiction writing workshops in Northern Ireland, mostly in Belfast, but also in Derry and in South Armagh. And we got a very deep political education there about the conflict and the legacy of the conflict, the ways that it is still very much alive in everyone's bodies. I mean, everyone that we interacted with were people who lived through it. Because the peace accord is only 20 years old. And one of the parts of the political education for me that was so intense was that, you know, this is a community that's living in the immediate wake of bombings, shootings, disappearances, tortures, and side by side with the people who they consider to be responsible for that harm. And so the way they encounter conversations about repair is completely different from anything that I've experienced here in the US. Because it's like embodied, you know, it's this, one of the things that we noticed is that in the conversations that they're having about accountability and repair, It's not even a question about whether or not, I'm going to say that a different way. I had thought that accountability required that the person accountable to me understood and agreed, right? That they agreed with my experience of the harm, that they could themselves articulate, like, yes, it was wrong and here's why. One of the things that we witnessed in the conversations there is that that's not the approach. It's not, there's a sense that, like, we have to find our way towards accountability and repair, understanding that we might never actually agree. We might never be able to bring someone else over to our side of the story, the understanding, the experience, and yet there could be repair. And that, for me, has been, I still don't even really know how to articulate it,
Right.
but that has been very, like, profound in shifting how I understand, how I'm thinking about my own political work, too.
Yeah, that's great. I love that, and I want to come back
I
to
jumped
that.
off of the novel
I
stuff, but
love what you did there. I think it was so brilliant. I'm like, yes. It's also because we were there to do visionary fiction writing workshops.
Right.
And so we came in, I think, very much like, okay, it's kind of going to be like this. And they just kept shocking us and just being like, well, not necessarily that. Oh, I can't do that. I'm not going to do the accent.
don't do it. Don't do it.
Okay. I managed to be in Ireland and not do an Irish accent the whole time. So can I get...
Almost the whole time.
That was private. Anyway. So I'll say for me in this one, there's a few ways. So in Octavia's Brood, my approach to this was I was like, rather than punishing people, some aspect of nature is going to be able to attune to whether there is a real love relationship, if there's love in the heart of the people who are in this place. And if there's not, then the wave will sweep them away.
Yeah.
And that was my solution.
The
I was
river just, like,
and the
took
river's
those
just like,
people
you
and
have
left
bad
their
intentions,
shoes.
right? And left their shoes.
That was my
So-
favorite part.
As
I
a
know.
warning.
It was like, oh, those are red Toms. But I had it was really interesting to me. I want to say that for me, it was in the lineage of the work of Marge Piercy. So Marge Piercy wrote this novel, Woman on the Edge of Time, about someone who's seen as being insane in the time that they're living in. And what we are learning from following her as a protagonist is that she's actually jumping ahead in time and seeing these other possibilities for the future. And in one of them, the way people deal with justice is basically you get one strike. It's like if you cause harm, you get a tattoo that says you caused this harm, and that way, even if you go someplace else, people will know, like, you caused this harm. And if you do it again, you're killed, right? And I was like, whoa, that's so extreme. And they were like, yes, but we don't believe in holding prisons. We don't think prisons change anything. We don't have the resources at this point in human history to do it. And so I always thought it was such an interesting, I was like, I think that's so uncouth. And yet I live in a country with the death penalty, like, where that's happening for people who are innocent, for people who, that's happening all the time. And
The death penalty of the street.
and the death penalty, and it's just like this is Minnesota. I was just learning about some of the work that's been happening here, and I'm like, y'all know, what these conditions are. So I've got 2 novels that I've been working on that are addressing this now in different ways, and in one of them, I actually had the world split along all the intersectional lines. So people are actually kind of like split up, and there's actually a place for people who are multi-anything, too. So it's like if you're multi-things, you go to one place. If you're pure whatever, certain things, I'm not going to explain what all the things are, but you split up because part of what I've recognized in the way that I've been doing the work is that so much of how people are allowing themselves to continue engaging in harmful behavior is that they're defining themselves against an other. And they're like, that other, they're the ones, they're bad. They're horrible. They're the ones who are trying to be hierarchical. They're the ones who are holding power in an evil way. So it's, as long as we can blame someone else, then it allows us to not see what you were saying, how we're holding it within ourselves. And so once people are split out, then they have to really contend with, there's no other, there's nothing else you can define as other here. And still, some of this stuff is emerging. We have to heal it. And it's only somehow, I'm still working on it, but it's like somehow in the healing of it that they'll be able to come back into diversity, come back into biodiversity that's needed to survive. and they have a time limit to that. So I've been playing with that, but I felt like in the work that I do, and now maybe this can be the pivot, because we want to talk a little bit about, so how does that imagining pivot back into the work we do? In the work that I do, so often it is getting people to take their attention off of blaming the other and actually bring it back. What are you practicing in yourself right now? And it's really easy to be like, well, I've been harmed. And so having been harmed, that justifies anything I want to do, right? I have been harmed. And I see it all the time that people, now it's not uncommon in our movement space for people to introduce themselves with the terminology of victimization in some way, right? That it's like, here is a terminology of how I have been defined by those who would oppress me. And, my name is this, and here's that terminology. And I'm like, wait, how did we get to that place, right? Mm-hmm. And what does it look like even at that place to be like, no, I reclaim myself before and beyond harm, and that's who I am. And like, as we get to know each other, I can share some of these other pieces with you, but I'm not the harmed self as a starting point. And I think then we also start to form solidarity that way, right? They were like, oh, I can only be in solidarity with other people who share the harm that I share.
Right.
Rather than people who share like the excellence or the brilliance or the incredible, like when I think of my Blackness, I'm like, my Blackness is this vibrant, live, beautiful, resilient thing. It's been attacked, but it is not the attack, right? Like Blackness is not a wound, right? I'm like, I'm not a wounded person because I'm Black. I'm like, incredible, resilient, surviving, amazing thing because I'm Black. And everyone has that in their lineage, right? It's like, we are the people who survived, all of us. We are the most resilient humans of all time. Like, the starting out with talking about the indigenous peoples of this land who are not gone, right? Who have survived, who have created and are starting to reclaim and recenter culture. I'm like that. I'm like, what? I'm like, we don't start that story with like genocide. I'm like, we start the story with like, look at this,
right.
Look at God,
right?
And also, there's been a lot of attacks, right? And here's the brilliance with which we have survived. And so when I look at the prison industrial complex, and I think about, oh, there's all these folks who are on the other side of this wall, and how do we begin to build a solidarity with them that is where we are not victims of them, and they are not victims of each other, and they're not victims of us. And that we, in that solidarity, how do we make that solidarity so strong that the wall can no longer hold, right? Mm-hmm. That I'm like, oh, I want to change the chemistry? I want to change the fundamental elemental nature of the world with our solidarity. That our solidarity is like, oh, yeah, literally walls cannot stand because we're so attuned to our strengths.
And we don't believe that we have that power, but we do.
I think we do. Mm-hmm. I believe we have it, and I believe, I'm gonna start smaller. So I'm really into like, what's a little, and so I've been really doing it with just one-on-one. Well, start really small. Really big. Anyway, thank you. I was like, why am I doing that? That little small, tiny voice, This is why, because I've been with these friends all day. But I do think that I start that when I do work with people where it's one-on-one, a lot of it is like, there's stories that we can tell that will actually make whatever barriers between us fall away or become irrelevant. And how do we get vulnerable enough on either side of that barrier to actually tell the story? And how do we soften enough to hear the story? Because that's one of the hardest things, is to hear the story of someone you've already decided is wrong, or you've already you're like, no, you can only be harmful. And I love this. I want to keep bringing this forward. What Miriam Kaba taught us when we interviewed her, which is when I tell people about our podcast, I'm basically like, I don't recommend anything. I'm like, if you want to listen, right? I'm not a pusher. I'm not gonna push it on you. But the one thing I'm like, every person alive needs to listen to Miriam Kaba talk about transformative justice.
Yes.
And the interview we did with her, she talks about that no one experiences harm for the first time when they're committing it. She's sharing the wisdom of Danielle Sered, right?
My friend.
Your boo. So, and I love that because I think to me, every time I hear it, every time I have to think that, I'm like, oh yeah. It's so easy to be like, this person is a harmful member of our community, and so they're not allowed to be in our community anymore. And I'm like, where did that start? Did they just like show up in the community one day like, hello, I'm looking for who I can harm here? Mm-hmm. It's like, no, that's not how people start. They come, they're like, I was harmed 2 communities ago, and I'm here with the chips already on my shoulder, and I don't expect anyone's gonna let me in. Mm-hmm. And so, right? And you can feel that energy. I feel like sometimes when you meet somebody, you're like, oh, like, I just moved here. I've been, spent 2 weeks in every city for the last 4 years or whatever. And you're like, I'm like, we should connect you with our local therapy network or whatever it is, before we say, like, join our organization. It's like, okay, I do wish
you should be on the board.
I mean, y'all, have we not done that? We've done that move, right? We're like, oh, you're so brand new and you're cute. You got a cute haircut. Like, you should be a part of it. I'm like, no, slow the roll, right? Like, build relationship, tell the stories, slow it down. So how has that impacted the work that you've been doing around prison abolition, around harm in communities?
So many thoughts. So actually, what I'm thinking about is, my next work.
Ooh, preview. Tell us.
Sneak preview drops January 2020.
All right, do you want everyone, turn your phones off. Don't even try to pretend, don't even try to get this.
Right. But I'll say that it's an ancestral listening text.
Okay.
So
I always tease Alexis because every time we talk to each other, I'm like, she puts the words together in a way that I'm like, I didn't know that existed. I didn't know I wanted that so bad, and now I need it. What is that? Like, the Alexis touch.
What is that indeed? Okay, so
say the words again.
It's an ancestral listening text.
Okay.
So basically, just listening to my ancestors all year, every day, like I do. Look at you taking notes.
I'm like, take note, everyone. Don't even write it down.
It's called Dub Finding Ceremony. But one of the things that happened, I was like, let me listen to my ancestors. I thought I knew who my ancestors were. There was a whole bunch of folks who were like, hi, also us. Some of those folks were like whales and coral and bacteria. Were like, acknowledge your ancestry.
I knew part whale. I knew it.
Didn't you know?
I knew it.
So there's a lot there. But one of the things that came up was, what about my ancestors who have caused harm to my other ancestors, to me? What about the harm that has been intergenerationally passed down in my family that I'm trying to unlearn? And part of the story in our family is like, it started with this person, right?
That's right.
And, or a whale.
Or that whale.
But the whales were really being helpful though, because the whales were like swimming alongside us during the Middle Passage, like, this is how you breathe out the top of your head. They were like,
Alexis,
activate your crown chakra, because this is what it means to be Black in the New World. Anyway, so.
That's incredible.
Could you just say that again?
I know, like, just, it's.
Probably not, but.
Okay, you said they were swimming alongside us.
The whales,
the Middle
because
Passage.
the same ships that were used to hunt down the whales are the same ships that were used to carry people as cargo here.
That part.
Right? So understanding that solidarity and kinship has been a part of what has been going on. That's not even what I was trying to tell y'all, but
that's what came through.
That's what came through, and I'm grateful for that. But listening to these ancestors, right? And like being in a transformative justice process with people who have been dead for generations.
That's right. That's what it actually takes.
And that in order, like you were talking about, to love ourselves, right? In order to love myself and to listen and to allow something to come through, I had to claim all of the ancestors.
That's right.
And not just be like, just the ancestors are perfect because they're ancestors. Like, no.
That's right.
There are many ancestors that I've had that I would not want to be more like them. I'm not aspiring to be more like them.
Okay.
It would not be helpful to our communities for me to be more like them.
That's right.
And for that healing to actually happen, I've had to the walls, the understanding of what it means to say, yes, this is something that's been so harmful. And what about this? Like, I have an ancestor, Anderson Gums, my great-grandfather, who was an abusive person. My grandfather always talked about his abuse, his alcoholism. Is there a baby crying? Oh, yeah. Oh,
that's baby Oscar, my friend Laura's baby.
So grateful for the sounds of life.
Hi, Oscar.
Hi.
1 hour and a half of talking has upset me.
Only the baby?
It's not crying.
Is it only the baby that's
Finn, that is so shady.
Okay.
No babies can get
Okay.
Hi.
Okay, that's true. Thank you for the feedback.
That's true. That's true.
I believe you.
So, Anderson Gums. So,
That's your child.
he had some things to talk to me about. You know, and like, what does it mean for me to look at my own healing? What does it mean for me to look at how my circumstances might be different from his? To have compassion for the emptiness that he felt, such that he did harm to the other members of my family, and to even have gratitude that I don't feel empty in that way, right? Like, what did that take? And another wonderful loved one of ours, Leah Lakshmi, Pepsina Samara Sinha, who I was just listening to her, the podcast episode where you interviewed her the other day, like, yes.
She broke so many things down.
We did a workshop on this together in Seattle about what does it mean for us to, specifically for Black, Indigenous, people of color in Seattle, to say, what does it mean for us to really look at our ancestors in a transformative justice way? What are we actually abolishing within our lineages, in our practices? And so that's actually the example that comes to the forefront for me, because I think that there's a way that before this particular process that I've been in, I've used this idea of the ancestors as like perfect and only awesome, and just basically a pseudonym for some kind of divine right of God, as part of my delusion about myself not being a person capable of harm, right? And my ancestors, when I listened to them, were like, we are not on board with any of your delusions.
Like, girl, we messed up.
We gave that up when we died.
Exactly. We've moved beyond the body. We don't have to lie to ourselves anymore.
Yes, we keep it real out here in the spiritual realm.
But there's a certain type of healing that has to happen through the ones of us who, as you said, who survived and who are embodied. And they're like, look, don't waste any more of this embodied time with delusions about how you could never harm anyone. Or that's what other people do.
That's right.
Right? You can psychoanalyze this other person and what they did. And as long as I continue to delude myself that I'm not capable of harm, I'm trying to be my sister's keeper, not being my sister.
That's right. Yes. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. Anything there that you in your work? I know you're kind of 3 months away from work, so I'm just like, anything there?
I'm like, well, I mean, one of the things that did come to mind, I think, as you were talking, Adrienne, is just, and I think I've probably spoken about this on the show before, but just the nature of being in a democratic workplace does change both how we orient to conflict, harm, challenges that arise inside of our work, but also how we orient to the way that we support other people around it. So inside of our work, it means that we are often at a loss. It's like there's no one else to blame, because all 13 of us now are democratically involved in this by choice, and it's just like there's no one to look to and say that person is the person who is ultimately responsible for fixing whatever dumb, terrible thing is now happening. It's like, oh no, we collectively are responsible for fixing any problem that we've identified. Which means that we are collectively responsible for attending to our own growth, our individual growth, and like the places that we need to grow as a group of people who are trying to be in this like liberatory practice together. So it can be quite painful at times, because it feels like being pushed right up against the edge of what we can imagine a lot of the time. And having to sort of be, and I think in movement spaces, we spend a lot of time saying, don't reinvent the wheel, like, people have done this before, and that is true in a way, right? Like, I really believe that about, like, I'm a student of movement history. I really believe in understanding the lineage that I stand in and knowing that there's very rarely something that I could be doing that hasn't been attempted before. And I also feel in the being in a democratic practice, in a cooperative, inside of late stage capitalism, inside a political moment where the landscape is shifting in the way that it is, that there are things that we're being called to do where we actually have to create processes that don't exist. We do have to. We all have to. Like, I think that one of the things that I'm realizing in my work right now is like, oh, we actually are being called in this moment to create things that are completely new. And I feel like as a parent, I'm getting exposed to that on a pretty regular basis because my children have thoughts and say things that I would never think of, you know. That is the thing that gives me like the most hope actually at any given time of my life, is just like talking to them and being like, oh, what? Like, yeah. You know, like I've never had that thought, you know. And, you know, and that's, you know, and so it feels important that like we see that as a skill that children are bringing to us, and that we cultivate it as a skill inside of ourselves to be able to actually like think new thoughts.
I mean, it's real. I feel like, because I for such a long time was part of my, like what I thought of as humility, you know, as I was like, I never think any new thoughts. Like everything's been thought before. Yeah. And I'm just remixing and like DJing thoughts, you know, in my mouth.
DJ Aiden B.
Thought. So, but.
Thought.
THOT. Anyway, so, but I do feel like it's like being like, oh, also, there's what I think of as not necessarily the full thoughts are new, but the intersections and the combinations are new. Like I think of it as like, you know, there are new dishes, there are new fusions, there are new things that happen that I'm like, oh, what is the new combination that is necessary? And like as you were just talking, I was like, oh, like what is the intersection between prisons and children? And like how are children part of, you know, liberation processes, right? I'm like, oh, yeah, I haven't really thought about that, right? I'm like, it's always like those things have to be kept far apart. And the juvenile justice system is like the worst thing that could ever happen, you know, and it's like, I'm really interested in being like, oh, how do I remix that thought? Or like, what could my new thought be about children as storytellers, children as visitors, children as teachers in these spaces? But I also keep thinking about, I keep hearing from, I've gotten a lot of letters from people who are getting access to emergent strategy inside of prisons. And it's made me interested because I'm like, you know, my initial thought was like, well, how would that work? Like, what would you be able to do with it, right? And I'm like, oh, what's my limitation? What am I thinking there, right? Because I'm like,
good noticing,
right? I always, I'm like, oh, right, because like to me, I'm like, prison is such a terrifying concept. Like it's maybe the most terrifying concept to me of what we can do to each other is be like, because I have decided that you have broken my rules, now you won't be able to go wherever you want to go, and we're going to watch everything you do, and we're going to intentionally put you in inhumane conditions and call that you serving your time, you getting back to your humanity. And it's just like, so to me, it's like, this is the most terrifying system we've developed, and think of ourselves as a society, as a civilized society, but we do this. And to me, it's like, that's the underbelly. Like, I just went and saw Us, and I was like, this is what this is about to me, is like, yeah, we just have done the most terrifying thing, and which
it's not civilized.
It's not at all. Exactly. That's
You're
what
right,
I'm saying.
Fran.
I'm just like, it's
More like non-human.
it's dehumanizing.
It's dehumanizing.
It's dehumanizing, right?
Yes.
And like
Thank
what
you.
people have to do in that space is then find a way to be like, oh, I'm still going to return to my humanity. Because I think, oh, some of the greatest teachers I have in my life are people who have been prisoners at some point, right? Both like the Malcolm X, like Mumia Abu-Jamal, but I'm thinking of like in Detroit, like Yusuf Shakur is like one of my greatest teachers, and he spent 8 years in prison. He met his father in prison, and he has come out and done so much for his community from that space. And so when I heard that people were reading Emergent Strategy, I got really excited because I was like, oh, small is all, and creating more possibilities like from both sides of this wall is so crucial. Yes. And I think about, again, what Miriam Kaba said, which was like, we're not going to be able to reach, like, the scale of prisons is so overwhelming. And so often the thing that keeps us from even beginning the path towards transformative justice is like, well, it's never going to be at the scale of prison. So like, it's not a real alternative. And for me, the challenge inside of that was that means so many of us have to embody a new way of being with each other. Like we all have to embody it, right? As many people as there are in prison, there have to be that many of us outside who are saying, I see through the wall to your humanity. I see you as a comrade, and I'm going to engage in processes with you, and I'm going to engage in processes out here so that less people end up in there, right? I'm just like, oh, it gets very exciting, and I'm going to see what you're doing in there, the organizing the prisoners are doing on their own behalf for their own freedom, for their own access to education.
And this is where I'm really excited about some of the content that we recorded in Ireland that will be coming. It'll be dropping soon because one of the people that we had the pleasure of partnering very closely with was a former political prisoner named Lawrence McKeon, who's a poet and a playwright, but he spent a very long time in prison in Northern Ireland and was on hunger strike. He almost died on hunger strike in the 1980s, but he shared so much with us about the solidarity work that was happening outside prison, and some of the incredibly creative ways that people were partnering with each other across those prison walls. So I'm really excited for some of the content that's coming in that way. What time is it? How are we doing?
I know. I think, it's 7:58.
Shit.
Okay, so I think we should let Alexis go, and we should transition into
our Q&A.
A very, very, very brief Q&A.
Alexis, we love you so much. Thank you for being a part of it. Okay.
All right.
Jump, dive.
Wow.
Well, now we know that you're a part whale. It's just
there's no stairs. Yeah. All right. She can also fly. All right.
Do we have to end right at 8? No. Okay. So we can we can push
you're
a little
the
bit.
Boss, so. Okay. So we got a few questions that we gathered. We saw things we imagined.
We saw things we imagined.
All right, we're singing Solange, which all of you need to watch and see. And I say, don't form an opinion until you've watched the movie, even if that means you have to find a friend who has Apple Music. Okay? All right.
Access is magic.
Yeah, because honestly, I just want to say, I want to write her personally and be like, I think you really flubbed the release process. I do. I think she did. I think
now that you're a best-selling author, you can totally give Solange feedback.
Listen,
as a best-selling author.
You don't know me, but I was on the bestseller list. And so based on that, I just think you should have released the movie on all platforms because it's a soundtrack that you released and people are like, what is this? Anyway, so we have these 3, that's what I think. We have these 3 questions here that people sent in, and let's see how we do. Can I ask it to you as if I'm asking you the question?
Sure.
Considering that Mini Critical... Okay, I'll do a different.
Like whoever's question this is, she's not making fun of you because she doesn't know who you are, okay?
I don't, and I also, this is how I ask, this is how we are. As you know, because you listen to us. So considering that many critical indigenous theorists, Kyle White, for example, have noted that apocalyptic conditions, such as ecological devastation and mass human genocide, have already happened and continue to happen, how is your conception of the end of the world informed by this? How are you engaging with, what is that?
Is that your MP3 player? Okay.
Oh, good. Are we on time?
Okay.
Oh, okay.
It's your bedtime. Okay. It's up past your bedtime. Yeah.
Just for the sake of Autumn is a responsible parent, they're taking the day off tomorrow.
Yeah. Oh, you're not going to school tomorrow, by the way.
Yeah. Party all the time, party all the time. Is that responsible parenting? I don't know. Okay, anyway. So, given all that, how is your conception of the end of the world informed by this? How are you engaging with decolonial resistance?
Given that these conditions are already present.
Yeah, given this concept that that ecological devastation, mass human genocide has already happened and continues to happen, how is the concept of the end of the world informed by it? How are you engaging with decolonial resistance?
That's such a good question.
Yeah.
Whose question was that?
I mean, I think the whole point was that it was supposed to be anonymous, right?
Oh, yeah, sorry. Okay. Yeah, it's interesting to think about. Someone had pointed this out to me. I think maybe when we you can't stop laughing. I think maybe when we first started the show, someone had said, oh, what if the apocalypse that we lived through actually was, the Middle Passage. And we're now you just have to pause, Finn. But what if we are long, long after it, the great apocalypse that people often think about. I think, how is my conception of the end of the world informed by this? How am I engaging with decolonial resistance? I think I engage through grief. I think my primary engagement with it is being in a grief practice. And I think grief, the act of grieving, the work of grieving, the discomfort of being in a state of loss and knowing that there is nothing that can be done to change the loss I am experiencing has been the most important work of my life. And I've been put, all of us, I'm just speaking for myself. I've been put I found myself in situations like that repeatedly over the last few years in particular, of just finding myself inside of conditions where I'm I've lost something that I never thought I could lose. And it feels unimaginable, and yet it also is. It's undeniable that I have lost it. And yet my heart is beating. I'm breathing. Oh, my children are right here. I have to pee. That somehow the minutia of the reality of just every day, every hour, just minutes passing. So then there's that initial feeling of it's work to be alive right now. Feels like work, especially inside of loss. But then being alive is also the work, right? It's I feel I'm especially these days, I feel I'm in that dance, where I have moments of feeling wow, it's really work just to be alive right now. And then, oh, being alive is really the work right now, Thank you. I'm just going to take the affirmation. She's heckling me.
You got heckling children. That's what we're learning right now. It's good. They're heckling with love. Yes. So thank you for that. I think what you're offering there is profound. And it feels I kind of wonder sometimes, I'm can you even really understand that the work is around surviving apocalypse until you've gone through some of your own personal apocalypse? I feel it changes things so much. You understand more what's important and what really falls away. Mm-hmm. And you understand, things go on. You still, it's so interesting to me because I always think when I lose someone, the moment that it hits, I'm they're gone. And you go through that initial wave of grief. And then in those moments, I'm I'm never going to eat again. I'm never going to, I'm never going to sleep again. I was just I'm just going to cry. Mm-hmm. I'm only going to be crying on the floor.
Right.
And then
I'm just going to be nauseous for the rest of my life.
That's just going to be it. This is it. Right. And then something, that next urge, that next life urge eventually kicks in and is no, bitch, you have a bladder and you are hungry. And the fact that we have learned that as humans, what people bring to a memorial or funeral is the most food, it's here's 20 mac and cheese. I remember that from Grandpa's funeral.
Oh my God.
It was literally 20 mac and cheeses. One which was
so much mac and cheese.
Saltines, which I'd never seen that method before.
It was delicious.
But I remember we were sitting here making jokes and
yeah, Minnesotans can't laugh at this because we know what you put on your hot dishes. This was in South Carolina, where it's a casserole.
I don't think I should say anything else there, but I do feel the quickness with which laughter comes back in also blows my mind. That I'm always I'm never going to laugh again. And then someone says something that's hilarious, often about the person who just died. And it's like, oh, right, that motherfucker. Like what it was. It was like, right. It was like they're not like, and they might be an angel now, but they were not, yesterday. And so it's just like being able to think of that on an individual level gives me so much hope for us at a collective level that I'm like, I feel like we are in the death throes of this nation. I really do. Like, my post-nationalist heart is like, I don't know what the next structures will look like, but I think what this thing can hold, the amount of tension and dissension and ignorance that it can actually hold, I think we're hitting that limit. And it gives me hope to be like, and we will hit that limit. And it will fall apart, like, for real. And then we will still pee, and we will still laugh, and we will, like, cook for each other, and we'll be like, that motherfucker.
Just like we've always done.
Like we've always done. I mean, like, because we're like, that's what our lineages have left us. That's the gift that has been offered down, is like, you go on. Yeah. You go on. And like, when the time is there for us to not go on, like, we'll all become butterflies, and then the butterflies will be like, be
those
human.
Twerking butterflies.
All right, everybody do your butterfly, your future butterfly self. Okay? And just remember, like, you're going to be laughing about, like, oh, remember when humans thought they were, like, the premier thing that was going on Earth, and, like, their consciousness was the only thing that mattered? Right? So, all right, let's see one of these other questions. This one feels beautiful.
I'll ask you. What role does spirituality, please define it in your own terms, play in abolition?
Ooh, I love that question. I do understand why you want to know who. I'm like, I think I love that person. Yeah. Oh my God, we're married. Okay.
You don't believe in marriage.
It just happened, children. I know. I was like, I don't believe in marriage. That's why I joke about it. I mean, not to offend any married people who are still in belief. No, I didn't. Did I offend anybody? No. Okay. So, did I offend y'all?
Sure.
Okay, let's talk about it on the way home. So, to me, abolition is a fundamentally spiritual work. I think Michelle Alexander is about to write a book about this, and I'm like, write that book, Michelle Alexander. But it's something that I think that from an informed place, like we talked about having a gathering about spiritual abolitionism, and I'm like, it's like, I think that we're...
You can give her that feedback now.
I know, I can be like, hey girl, guess what? After I call Solange, I'm gonna call her. So, listen, if you don't write it, I'm going to. I'm gonna be so impossible for like 3-4 days. Like, it's just, you can't tell me nothing right now.
You deserve it, go ahead.
You can't tell me right now. I'm like, even wore an Ariana Grande, like, hair. I was like, can't tell me anything right now. I have to take a picture. Okay. So, but I actually do believe, seriously, that abolition is a fundamentally spiritual activity, because all the work of abolition is, you have to actually believe inside yourself that there's something about liberation that is more compelling than punishing another person. And if you believe that for others, you have to believe it for yourself, and vice versa, right? And I think most of us can get there for ourselves, right? Like, I can think of all the things I've ever done wrong. It's not a lot, but it's like, some of it was bad, okay? It's a lot, you're right, I'm horrible. So I think about the things I've done, and I'm like, there's nothing that I've done that I would justify giving myself a punitive response for, right? I'm like, I could always find a way for myself to be like, but you know, I had a lot of trauma. There was a lot that went into that. I was going through a lot of harm. I was going through this. I can always see my own way to, someone should have compassion for me. And I've been very lucky in my life that many people have. And many people have had the compassion to say, Adrian, I'm disappointed in you. I know you can do better. And I'm going to stay right here and help you do better. I want to be part of the system that helps you become better. And I'm like, I believe in the miracle of you, and I like have had to let that in when I did not believe I was a miracle, when I did not believe that I deserved to be here because I had done something so egregious. And to be like, oh, someone else's faith in me is what helped me to see myself as I truly am, which is a full human being, right? Flawed, egregious, beautiful, all of it. And so I'm like, if we can allow that for every other person, like, to me, abolition is rooted in that. It's not We're going to go and open every cage. It's like we don't believe that cages will ever work for any human being. That's not where we heal. It's not how we recover. That's not what our resilience looks like. It's not where our resilience takes place. At the same time, I'm really interested in reclaiming the spirituality of setting someone aside, giving them room to contend with themselves. And I think that's the thing that gets missed inside of what we have now in these prison conditions, is I do think that we have people right now active in our movement who need a fucking break. An imposed break, right? It's like, we would like to invite you to go spend some time on an island by yourself. We will send in a therapist
Shame
every
Island.
3 days, right? And that therapist will help you to work through stuff. You're gonna get the most delicious food. You're gonna get unconditionally loved. You're gonna get such good treatment, but you're all gonna get quiet time. To reflect on yourself with no social media in reach, right?
Yeah.
Because I think so much of what happens, right, is we don't get the time to sit with, like, why did I do that? Why did I do that? And instead of getting the time, like, I think this, this has been my big thing with the whole Me Too movement, is I'm like, what's happening right now is it's like, people know they messed up, right? All the people who are like, Me Too could happen to me, they're walking around like, hopefully no one will notice, and then someone does, and instead of being able to, like, take time and be like, why did I do that? Why did I assault someone on a movie set that I was working on, or whatever, thing that, why am I Kevin, what's his name? Spacey, right? Like, why did this happen? And then there's no time for that person to actually reckon with that. There's just time to go on the defense, to issue some stupid statement, because we're like, we need a statement immediately. And it's like, anyone who's like, hasn't come out themselves and said, hey, I caused harm, and I want y'all to know about it, and I'm doing this about it. If someone isn't coming forefront like that in our movement or in any other space, that's the first reaction that we want from them, is not a statement, right? Because we know that they're in a place where they're like, oh, I can't believe this is happening to me, right? Like, that's the thing that's really happening. And I'm like, you have to take a long time.
Because people will always default to their own victimization first.
Absolutely, right? And I'm like, fine, that's a shape that has kept you safe. But it won't keep anyone else safe, and that's why you can't keep that shape. And you need time to reckon with that. And so I'm interested in that. To me, I'm really interested in, like, the spiritual work of solitude, and reclaiming the spiritual work of solitude as a part of what abolition entails, rather than just being like, it's all good. We never, ever, ever send anyone to spend time alone. I'm like, no.
Right.
Like, take a break. take a year and a half. So that you can come back and say, I really got time to think about it and to work through it and to do some healing. And I'm not just trying to push my way back in. I'm trying to humble myself and say, I can belong again,
Yeah.
For the sake of time, I think we should just move to the third one, if you're down.
Yeah.
Which-
And let's maybe do like 'cause
Rapid
I'm
fire?
tired, so let's do rapid fire.
Are you tired?
Yeah.
Let's do rapid fire.
Are you
Oh my
tired?
gosh. I'm never tired. No, I'm tired.
Yeah.
I'm basically sleeping on the inside. How do you center yourselves in moments of intensity during facilitation and mediation? That's a great question. It's like that. It's kind of like that.
Oh, one of the things I do to center myself is if there's a child in the room, I will just hold the child.
Yes. Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Yes. Often you are the people that I think of holding, even if you're not there. That's why y'all are on my phone.
Well, okay, so should we each give like an answer to this?
Yeah.
How
let's do it.
do we center ourselves?
You
go first.
give me. You want me to go first?
Yeah. Intensity, which could mean anything.
Yeah. I was thinking what have I done the last 3 times there's been intensity? The main thing I do is widen my perspective out. So I'm like, oh, what's happening in this room? It's not the first time. It's not the last time. It's not the only time. We're not the only humans
It's
working
not even
on
the
this.
actual thing.
It's not usually the thing that matters. And what these folks need right now is not for me to super hone in and be like, fix it, It's more like, it's all good. Like in the grand, space rocks floating through, galaxies and cosmos and
What's
stars.
the difference between a rock and a space rock?
Well, one is on Earth and one is in space, obviously. So,
But a rock is on Earth, which is
Thank
also
you.
in space.
yes, I mean, I think it's all space.
Okay, go ahead.
Anyway, we're not even high right now. So, but I do want to recommend. You're not?
I'm not, totally not.
Am I? I'm not.
I'm a parent.
I'm a parent. No, I'm not a parent. I'm obvious. Okay, just kidding. Let's see if anyone gets that. Okay. All right. So, what are we talking about? What are we talking about?
You were saying that you widen your...
I widen my perspective to a space rock, and then I'm fine.
Okay.
Also, I widen my perspective on on the arc of that person's life. Because often, like, if I can't do that, then I get really annoyed with the person. I'm like, can't you see that we're trying to, like, foment justice here, and you're holding us up with your intensity? And instead of recognizing, like, probably that intensity is a part of the fomenting justice process. And if I can see that person as, like, oh, their intentions are still fomenting justice, even in this moment. If I can see that, like, in the arc of their life, this is a moment in which they're being brave or taking a risk or something, if I can widen that way, it chills me out, and then when I chill out, I can usually get the room to chill out. What about you?
Well, I was thinking about the centering myself part of it, because I think, like, as a facilitator, it's taken me I've always been a very good facilitator,
Yes, you have.
but it took me a long time to be excellent at it, because masterful or mistressful. But like, I think that part of that was because in the early years of my facilitation work, I really relied on my star power as the way to, like, make the room do what I wanted.
Star power.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very starish.
You're very,
Some might call me a space rock. But that's different than actually being good at what you do.
a space rock is not a star.
Yeah.
So, you are a star.
Oh, now we're gonna fight about whether a space rock is a
I was
star.
watching
Okay.
One Strange Rock, and I learned about what a star
Okay.
is. So.
But I think that the kinds of things I had to learn to do in order to become really, like, excellent at facilitation had to do with, like, the ability to really tune in to the way that someone else's energy was impacting me. Particularly, one of my big journeys was around other people's confusion. That I found that, like, more than any other strong emotional response, that another person's confusion is the most likely thing to cause me to become defensive. Go figure. And I mean, yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on.
I like to think I'm clear.
Yeah, I like to think I'm really fucking clear.
We all actually like to think, almost everyone I've ever met.
I know, I'm sorry with the language.
We told you we were going to curse, you guys. In
That's
20
true.
years, people are all going to be cursing. Alex.
Yeah.
You heard it
Yeah,
right
will there
here.
even be curse words is a good question.
Space rock will be a curse word in the
So
future.
all of that is to say, before my children fully take over the podcast, all that is to say, okay, please, just give us to the end, and then you can come on stage and take over the mic, okay? So that is to say that for me, I had to learn that, like, that my energy was completely tied to the energies that were happening in the space, to everything that, you know, that there was no separation between me and the people in the room. No matter how much strangers to me they were, there was no actual energetic separation between what was happening in their bodies and what was happening in mine. And so centering myself now really looks like the boundaries that I erect intentionally over the course of the entire experience between myself and the people that I'm working with. And I'm very, very, very verbal and direct about it with people. So, like, I just facilitated, when I was in Vermont for this writing residency, it was a work exchange. So I facilitated a staff retreat for this organization that runs this international artist residency program. And in exchange, I got an artist residency. And I told them, like I was really clear with them, like we are going to be in this content until like noon on Tuesday. At that point, my residency begins, and you're not allowed to talk to me about anything that happened in this room. No matter, like, we're going to see each other for another 10 days, but you can't talk to me about that, you know?
Yes,
so for me, I find, and I'm a very verbal person.
You are.
So, but I do find that the things that help me center myself most are when I can clearly articulate my boundary to other people. Knowing that, like, more clearly I can articulate it, the more likely it is that it will A, be observed, but B, that I will feel accountable to hold it because I actually had to say it out loud.
That's right. I love that. I want to add also that I am a student of somatics, and I actually center. There's like an actual centering practice.
Oh, yeah.
And I use it all the time in my facilitation.
Length,
in a
width,
moment, I'm just
depth.
like, length, I've got my dignity, I have the right to be here, I've got a history, I've got a future, I've got a purpose. And it's just like, oh, right. It's all good. So I want to offer the Healing Justice podcast actually did an interview with Sumi, and if you look it up, there's a centering practice on there. So if you're like, oh, what is that centering practice?
It's amazingly helpful.
It's on there. She leads you through it and can teach it to you. Thank you so much for listening to our show. We are on Twitter and Instagram at End of the World PC. We're also on Facebook at End of the World Show. You can make a sustaining donation to our show by visiting our page at patreon.com/endoftheworldshow. And one of the things that Patreon is helping us track right now is how many people really support this show and really want this show. And it helps us get a sense of whether we should increase how often we're putting the show out. So definitely at least, give us $1 here and there. Let us know that it's like, yeah, this has value to us. Or y'all have value to you, or you know what I mean. Another incredibly helpful thing you can do is to write reviews on Apple Podcast or any other place where you listen to the show, and reviews might help. And if you enjoyed the taste of Alexis Pauline gums that you got with this live show, make sure to go back and really bask in her brilliance in an episode from our first season called A Breathing Chorus. She really breaks down time travel and God and a few other small concepts that deserve exploration. You can also read her fiction. As we mentioned, M Archive is a beautiful taste of her fiction. You can find her poetry in Spill. And she's currently doing a beautiful series on our water mammal friends and kind of the missives from them as both ancestors and comrades on this planet. So on social media, all platforms, Alexis Pauline is where you can find all that. And yeah, just keep listening to what she's got to offer us. How to Survive the End of the World is produced and edited by the glorious mammal, Zach Rosen. Music for today's show comes from Tunde Olaniran and Mother Cyborg. And our Easter egg for this show is, you may have noticed the voices of our nibblings really gathering us and guiding us and disrupting us throughout the recording of this podcast. They were sitting in the front row. And when we reached the end of our podcast recording time, they actually took the stage, and it was a lot. What we learned in that is that they do not want to be second fiddle to any book signing activities, right? So we thought that we would offer y'all a little bit of what they did during their podcast time, and we're definitely planting the seeds for needing to do an interview with them. And if you like hearing from nibblings in general and like stuff that has to do with the brilliance of babies, check out this up-and-coming podcast called Raising Rebels. It's on Spotify, and it's an incredible set of stories and wisdoms from the incredible Nolika, who's over at Brooklyn Free Schools. So that's going to be coming out. First episode drops, I think, this coming week, June 20th or so. So check that out. And happy Juneteenth. Happy Juneteenth. Yeah, so here are my nibblings talking about cats and chess and some other things. So much love. So something that I'm really interested in is your fashion choices. Both of you are extremely fashionable.
Oh, yes. Yes. We are very fashionable.
Tell me, what are some of the things you think about when you're picking your outfits?
I think about what it's gonna feel like and what I feel like and what it felt like before. And I've feel most of my clothes before. Some of the clothes I haven't. Some, by just looking at them, I can tell if I like them and I can tell if they're uncomfortable. So that's how my daily clothes work.
Well, I'm not that much of a fashion girl, but I do like some of my clothes, but I tried to make a dress. I kind of did it, but it didn't fit me, so I gave it to somebody else.
All right, my next question is, if you had a podcast of your own, what would your podcast be about? What are some of the things that are really exciting and interesting to you?
About the book I'm writing.
Tell us more.
My book is named How You Do With Yourself and Shadow. It's a very big book, and I'm not done at all yet. The cover has all the things you need to know about it. On the back, like every story, it tells you a little bit about the book. So, this book is about a little girl growing up with herself and shadow. She can't handle what she's doing in her life, and in the end, she figures out what to do. I'm not telling you! You have to read the book. Jesus.
If I had a podcast, I would talk about my family and my life.
Yeah, that's better than mine. Okay.